Good morning and welcome to Behind the Screen. I am JM, I almost said JM, your GM. I'm not your GM today. I am the host of Behind the Screen, a show where we talk about games, game design, game theory, games that we love. That's something that I'm always going to try and stick to. Speaking positively about things that I love as opposed to negatively about things that I don't. So today we're starting into, I don't know, we're going to take maybe a month, maybe a little bit longer, intermixed with some other ideas, but we're going to be talking about this game right here, Savage Worlds. I love Savage Worlds. It is a game that has always existed on the periphery for me, but last year we got to do the Deadlands Horror at Headstone Hill stream, and I sort of fell in love with the game. And obviously, I'm doing more work with Savage Worlds, so I'm digging deeper into the system. And so, several of the people on the Iconic Production Discord asked for a deep dive into, well, actually, two different systems. We're going to start with Savage Worlds. This summer, we may do a RuneQuest deep dive. But I just want to go through and explain, what I love about Savage Worlds, kind of how you get into it, why you may want to pick it up, as well as some of the deeper dives into kind of the more moving pieces of it later on. So today we're talking about what I consider the core three mechanics of Savage Worlds. So if you're coming from a D20 background, you're going to pick up on three really different things about Savage Worlds that I think are part of the core experience of the game. And the first is the way they handle trait rolls. So a trait in Savage Worlds is going to be anything that is, an attribute or a skill, essentially. Traits are governed by die types as opposed to static bonuses or static numbers. Like if you've been following Iconic Production for a while, we play a lot of different games. We've done a lot of Torg, we've done a lot of 5e, we've done a lot of Fading Suns, and those games all have either bonuses or static numbers that you're rolling against, and Torg decides to split the difference and do both of them. So in this game, the target number for most tests never changes. 4 is the target number. Combat's a little different, based off the parry of the target, but really 4, 5, 6, that's kind of what you'll see most often in parries. But for the core mechanic, 4 is always your target number. Makes it really easy for new players. Hey, what do I need to roll this? Well, what's your die type? D4, D6, D8, D10, D12. Excellent. Roll that, and if you get a 4, you succeed. If you have a couple of bonuses or something's harder and you have penalties, they usually come in 2s. And that's it. That's the core mechanic of the game. Pick your die type, target number 4. Now, paired onto this is the idea of raises, acing, and the wild die. So we're going to cover each of those kind of in logical progression. A raise is when you beat a target number by 4. That's it. Every 4 you get gives you another little bit, it gives you something special. So think of raises as critical successes in other games. If you needed a 4 and you got an 8, you get a raise. And in combat, raises do extra damage. In skill tests, they give you extra pieces of information. And they're sort of like the critical successes in other games. Now, you may be wondering if I have a D4 or a D6, because the ratings of traits are between D4 and D12. It's kind of hard to get an 8 on a D6, very rare on a D8, slightly more possible on a D10 or 12. Well, that's where acing comes in. When you ace, acing is when you roll the highest value on a die. So very easy, just drop the D off the front of your trait die, and there you go. You ace on a D6 on a 6, you ace on a D12 on a 12. And what that just means is if you roll the maximum value on a die, you pick it up and you re-roll it. And you keep re-rolling until you stop rolling the maximum number on the die. Total up all of your die results, and that's your final number. We had in our Horror at Headstone Hill game, Bob rolled a 54 on a d6. It was pretty awesome. Hey, Mark, good to see you. Good to see Grom and Certified Torganic as always. So the last thing is the wild die. So as wildcards is the term that Savage Worlds uses for heroes. Or villains, capital H, capital V. So you guys are playing wildcards in a game of Savage Worlds. It means you get bonuses. We'll talk about wildcards in another episode. But one of the things that you get is a d6. You always get a d6 when making a trait roll. So you'll pick your die from your character sheet and roll a d6, and you get to roll both of them at the same time. You get to pick whichever higher. That gives you this more than average chance of one, acing, but even being able to succeed even if you only have a d4 on something, because you're always rolling a d4 and a d6 and picking the better of the two. Never add them together. So that's core mechanic 1. I've just explained 90% of the rolls in Savage Worlds. I love that. It's simple. The tagline for Savage Worlds is fast, furious, and fun. Any game that I can explain the rules to people in under 6 minutes, it's pretty fast. All right, core mechanic 2, the Benny. Savage Worlds uses a meta currency, like a lot of games do. Fading Suns has the weird point. Torg has possibilities. Fate has fate chips. Clash has fate points. Savage Worlds has bennies. Bennies are a meta currency that you as the player get to go, I need to do better on this roll. You start with 3. They come back slowly. You come back when you do cool things, when the GM laughs at your joke or decides that you're playing into the setting rules real well. But a Benny allows you to pick up both of your dice and re-roll them. See what comes up. When you do it for damage, you can also spend Bennies on damage. They allow you to make sure that hit hits harder. You can also spend bennies to get magic points back, power points for your powers, your psionics, your magic. We'll talk about powers in a later episode. But basically, bennies are the currency that you have to say, no, I really need to succeed here, or I really don't want to die here. We'll do a whole episode on damage and soaking. Restar says, he says Savage, like Johnny Depp. I think we should start a whole trend for Savage Worlds. Make it sound, cultured. Wear our monocles and extend our pinkies while we're drinking our brandy, playing Savage Worlds. Hey, Padre, good to see you. So that's the second mechanic. You as the players are the heroes. The game is really focused on making you feel like the pulp action hero in the setting you're in. I'm writing a horror adventure right now, and I'm trying to remember, I got to think more pulp Cthulhu than strict Cthulhu as I'm writing this adventure. Because wild cards are incredibly powerful, even at novice levels, which is the starting rank of the game. Just the fact that you can take 3 wounds and you can spend bennies to soak means you have a staying power that the minions of the world do not have. And finally, the last core mechanic is something that if you follow us on social media, you would have seen me post about it yesterday. I love how Savage Worlds does initiative. This may seem like a weird thing out of place with the kind of central mechanics that we see with the trait rolls and with bennies, but I think it is one of the things that makes Savage super unique. You don't roll for initiative. You take a deck of cards, and every round you hand out a card to every wild card and to every group of bad guys. Then you all flip them. Take your turn in descending card order. We start with aces, then face cards, then the numbered cards. You end up, there's some minor rules about if you both have a 6, who goes first. Spades go first, then hearts, diamonds, and clubs. But what this does is it allows every round of combat to be dynamic. You never know when you're going to go next time. You need to ensure that you have a plan, but your plans are going to change from round to round because maybe you drew an ace, maybe you got a deuce. You don't know when you're going to go. You don't know if this round the tables are turning against you because all of the threats are suddenly going before you, or you get a great round where everyone draws face cards. Rook, thank you for your subscription. 41 months, man. I appreciate it. Certified Organic says not to be confused with Savat Worlds, which is about French kickboxers. I think that would be a great setting to put together for Savage Worlds Certified. That would be amazing. Yeah, or Sausage World, which is yeah, but nobody wants to know how that game system is made. Restar. So the other thing about this is the initiative allows you to have some spontaneity. The deck doesn't get reshuffled until someone draws a joker. Now a joker acts as like a held action. You can interrupt anyone. You can go at any point in the initiative whenever you want with a joker. You also get +2 to all of your trait rolls and +2 damage, which means you have a better chance of succeeding on multi-actions or taking really big risks because you have a slight bonus. And if you do hit, you do a ton of extra damage. You also get Bennies back. Your side gets Bennies back when you draw Joker. Then the deck gets reshuffled and moved on. So that's my overview of the 3 core mechanics of Savage Worlds. I will say, one of the things I like most about Savage Worlds, and I know I've mentioned this before, is Savage Worlds really is a game. A lot of games say that they're narrative. And usually what that means is that they don't have a lot of rules, which I think just means they're not play tested very well. We can have an entirely different discussion about that. Or they fail at being a game. Savage Worlds handles this, I think, better, handles the narrative of the gameplay better because of the systems it has in place. If you need a high-level battle and don't feel like playing it out because you want to, every round of the combat, they've got quick battles. You can just blitz through combat at a very high level to experience it, see what the story bonuses are, and then move on. If you want to get deep into the tactical minutia because this is the centerpiece of the adventure, you can do that as well. On Crucible of Realms, we tend to do somewhere in the middle. We tend to enjoy a more of a theater of a mind. But I've got the camera set up that if we end up getting into our deep tactical combat, we're going to be able to pull that off as well. So, we're going to talk a lot more about Savage World over the next several weeks. Monday or Tuesday, we're going to talk about the differences between 5e and Savage World. What does each one do better, and why do I think Savage World, where do I think Savage World shines? And kind of in comparison, kind of as the lingua franca, we're going to talk a little bit about 5th edition. And then next Thursday, we're going to talk about, if you are at all interested in getting into publishing role-playing games, Savage Worlds make it super easy. Now, I will admit that's a little bit double dipping for me, as I am the Savage Universe liaison. But I figured there were enough questions after we launched Savage Worlds that why not just take a little bit of time and walk through what the different licenses are and how you could get started publishing things for a role-playing game. After all, if you're DMing, or GMing, you've come up with ideas, little house rules, setting rules, equipment that you think would be cool to put out there. And Savage Worlds and Pinnacle give you a lot of great ways to do that. I might be a little biased, Grom, but I will always admit my biases. So yeah, that's what we had on the 3 core mechanics of Savage Worlds. I know a lot of you love Savage Worlds, and I appreciate your enthusiasm because it's sort of infected me. We've got some new great fans to the channel because of our Savage Worlds work, and obviously we're running Crucible of Realms, so little behind-the-screen views at rules help me be better prepared for my game. Speaking of, we'll be back on Tuesday with Crucible of Realms, the third part of Welcome to the City. It has the night off was good, I think, for everybody, and I got to see my son in The Lion King, which was far better than I thought it was going to be. I'll admit that. We're going to be back next week. We're going to have next week is our full week of the month for Iconic. We've got both of our behind the screens. We've got Crucible of Realms on Tuesday. Thursday night, I have my Deadlands game for the Iconic patrons. I've got 5 people signed up for that. Don't worry, guys. I'll be sending out the archetype files for everybody who's going to play in that. You get to pick your archetype, and we're going to start that at about 8. That will not be a streamed game. That is just something fun to do to hang out with the fans for a couple of hours and play some Deadlands. Then next Saturday, we'll have the next part of Exploring Glorantha as we wrap up the first age of Glorantha as kind of our temporal view. And then Sunday night, we will be... not this Sunday, this is all next week. So not this Sunday, which is Easter, the following Sunday, we'll have our first stream of the 13th Age 2nd Edition playtest. So it's going to be a busy week next week. But as always, thank you all for coming and hanging out and talking games with us. I think we've come up with some great new Savage World settings here in the chat. And we will be back on Tuesday with more Behind the Screen. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. I will talk with you all on Tuesday where we talk about the differences between Savage World and 5th Edition D&D. Until then, have a good one.